This is such a great group to speak to because there are people in here that I've worked with for years, that I've worked for years, and then people that I have admired from afar for a long, long time. Now, those that have worked with me for years will tell you that you don't want me unplugged, so so just ask them later this afternoon when they've had a beer over at the reception to tell you the unplugged Mary stories. I won't tell you which people to ask, but there are enough in this room that could tell them to you. I'm really delighted to be here today, and I'm excited to have the chance to talk to you. But as I begin, I have to make a confession. I'm really a little jealous of you guys. I'm at the end of a road that I've had a whole lot of fun traveling. And a lot of you in this room are either at the beginning of that road or a little bit further down the path, and I'm envious of all the adventures and fun that you've got ahead of you. Now, I know you're sitting there saying to yourself, I told you the broad was crazy. What? Please. But I'm going to ask you just to bear with me a minute, and let's for a few minutes think about our work from 30,000 feet instead of from 3, where we usually are. Let's look beyond the tight budgets, the politics, the difficult task, those hundreds of people that counsel and advise you that might not know quite as much as you do about your job. Let's consider broadly for a minute where we are and what we do. We're one of 6 metro areas that together create 25% of the GDP of our country. Our metro GDP is the 3rd fastest growing in the nation. Our economy is one of the strongest in the country. And there are opportunities to grow and progress in our careers in North Texas that are phenomenal. There are 200 plus cities and counties with thousands of public service jobs in local government or in community organizations. And in my mind, our work is very, very special. Our work enables us to make a difference in the communities. It enables us to contribute significantly to improving the lives in the communities, and also enables us to have incredible long-term impact. And while I feel really, really lucky to have spent over 40 years in this business, from where I am now, I am very, very envious of you and what you have ahead of you. I joke with some folks that those of us in this business have this slight emotional problem. And here's what it is. We need to be needed. All of us in this business want to help people. We want to improve the quality of life in our cities and communities. And overall, there's no better place to do that in public service, working for a local government or working for a community organization. Because after all, the first and most basic function we have is to keep the people in our communities safe. Safe from fire, crime, vicious dogs, bacteria-laden food, garbage, contaminated water. And we move and access the local economy through our sound roads, bridges, and for some of us, airports. We also educate and enhance and expand people's lives through libraries, parks, hike and bike trails, arts, and museums. So in short, and I want you to listen to this, we are absolutely essential to the well-being of our communities. Not as any particular individual, but as a group of diverse, hardworking, committed people. We make astounding differences. And it's not about where we stand in the organizational hierarchy. There hasn't been any difference in my jobs from the day I started as an entry-level librarian on my first job to my last job as city manager. In that sense, I could always articulate and understand and recognize the impact I was having in those jobs. And that has resulted in a very, very high level of job satisfaction for me. Now, that's the lofty things we do. Let me tell you, I think we get to do a lot of fun and interesting things. And we get to do them because of the work we do and the profession we're in. And we have experiences that we probably wouldn't have in other professions. And there are I can give you a lot of examples. Getting to talk with best-selling librarians, best-selling writers when they visited the libraries. Sitting in a really small discussion group with a bunch of major city chiefs who were talking about cases that were being experienced in their communities and featured on Newsweek and Time at exactly the same time. Assisting local officials of all levels in developing new legislative directives and getting them passed, working on capital projects with amazing world-renowned architects and artists, and participating in a work section in the White House. Now, I'm just going to have to stop on that one a minute because I behaved very well when I was there, but the little girl inside of me was going, I'm in the White House. Just had to share that with somebody. We get to meet presidents. We do all sorts of fun, interesting things that wouldn't happen in any other line of work. And I know I'm not unusual. Each and every one of you in the room has a similar list to this. We are not only a function of our community, but we're a presence in our state, in our nation, and sometimes in the world. Our work is interesting, challenging, rewarding, fun, and it makes a difference. For me, that's the perfect job. And I truly want you to recognize the value and the work of what you bring to the table. I want you to be proud of what you accomplish. And you don't always hear that lots of places. But in your heart, you need to know it and you need to keep it close to you. As I was worrying about this speech, and when I worry about stuff, I had to talk to everybody about it. So I asked several people, what would you want to hear if you were this audience? So my trainer, don't ask me why I asked him. I ask anybody, said to tell y'all to work out. I think he's right, though, because he's been keeping me moving for about 7 years, and I'm a lot stronger and a lot less stressed than I was, so I promised him I would share that with you. Several other people said, well, talk about the characteristics that help folks succeed in public service careers. So I do want to share a few of my ideas about that. We need folks that have the appropriate training and education. You know, and I don't know if we think about it often enough, we're involved in some pretty critical situations and activities, and training is crucial, sometimes life crucial. We need individuals that are principled. I don't need them to have the ICMA canon of ethics memorized, but I want them to know that they're leading principled, ethical lives. We need people who are committed, that have a belief in local government, public engagement, and democracy, all of which are very messy and require a lot of patience. And for me, it's commitment to the community that I'm serving. Now, at the management levels, and particularly if you want to rise through the organization, for me that means living in the community and being a part of that community. We need people with passion and strong interest in their work. Our jobs are not 8-to-5 jobs. You're eventually going to have to be involved in the community and participation outside the workplace. And it goes without saying, we want people that work hard. Now, it helps you if you can do some public speaking. You don't have to give a speech in front of 100 people or 500 people or however many, but in your careers, you're going to find yourself standing in front of a group, refereeing some problem, explaining some issues, and you won't think of yourself as public speaking, but that's what you're doing, and so please get comfortable with it. I want people that are innovative, that are good listeners, thick-skinned, and very brave, and diverse. Our communities should be reflected in our organizations. Very, very critical. Now, before I close, I have one last challenge for you. This is where I get a little bit unplugged. I'm immensely grateful for the education that I received at the University of North Texas. I'm excited about the presence that UNT is beginning to have in the region. And I'm pleased that the new president's talking about community partnerships. I believe those things are important. So with all the opportunities for growth and enhancement that are occurring, I think we as students, faculties, administrators, alums, community partners need to be requesting serious consideration for a College of Public Affairs. In order to be more competitive presence in this region, to recruit, educate, and graduate the very best people in our fields, to be taken more seriously by the donor community, we need a more clearly shared mission to move from a regional presence to a national presence in the local government field. I want all these things for UNT, and I think all of us ought to work in any way we can to make that happen. The one critical thing that I would like you to take away from this today is the self-acknowledgement of your value and the contributions you bring to your profession and to your community. You need to keep up those amazing efforts. You need to have pride in your work and joy in your steps. Because, to quote my favorite singer, you're the best. Better than all the rest. Better than anyone I've ever met. Thank you.
Hi, Mary. I have a question or a request from you. Our region tends to have a bit of an issue being able to figure out transit. I was wondering if you might be willing to dedicate some time to solving that issue. Or at least comment on your views on how we might be able to bridge that.
A lot smarter people than I am are working on it. I will tell you, okay, now I get a little unplugged. Transit and transportation is a very hard thing for public officials to kind of digest and pursue. The financing's hard, the rules are complicated, and without a long-term term on a council or a commission and learning all those things, it's difficult. I will tell you there are people in our region that do that. You need to encourage them to pursue improvements in those systems. The elected officials are the ones that can move that bar. You need to encourage elected officials to study, to learn that, to participate, to lobby in that. That's the key to all of it. Those of us that are in the administration and the management field, we know how to do a lot of things. We probably know how to move transit along, but we're not the ones that move it, the elected officials are. And so I'm just going to give you a plug for one of my favorite, best people in transit is Linda Coop. She was a council member that just learned it all. Everybody respected her. She could talk to anybody. Nobody said she's on this side or that side. I hope that she gets a chance to keep working at the state level on that. And that wasn't a political advertisement. That was just she's great. She was the model I would follow for that kind of work.
Other questions?
An easy one, not those hard kind.
Well, I do have a question. At least in our area, Chicago, North Dallas, West Dallas, we had an election for the primaries, and incumbents were defeated. John Cronin was defeated along with Senator Rattler, former school board member and one-term state representative. As the state legislature continues to be more Tea Party-like, and again, they're really targeting local control and other things, what would you recommend that us as administrators and managers, obviously we've got our code of ethics that we have to abide by, what would you recommend that we do as far as building those relationships with those new elected officials?
That's a hard one. His question is, as there have been turnover in the elections and the people have been moved in their positions considerably, the positions that aren't terribly supportive of local controls and local situations, and how do we develop relationships with them? One step at a time, as you do with anybody else, I think. I've found over the years that if you keep at it, you can influence almost anybody. If you're careful about how you approach them and respectful of their views. I was raised in a family that had a school teacher and a federal worker. So I have never been able to put an election sign in my yard or something on my bumper sticker or contribute to anybody's campaign. And it's interesting now to think that I might be able to do that, but I really think that background helped me. I have immense respect for the people that get elected to office. I may not agree with the voters on the people that were elected, but that respect, and I think we all have to have it, guides our relationships with them.
Any other questions?
Talk about your upcoming conference.
Oh, yes. Somebody asked me the other day, said, well, what are you doing now that you've retired? And I said, well, I'm an event planner and a party planner. And they said, wasn't that what you were doing when you were city manager? Sort of. The U.S. Conference of Mayors is coming to Dallas for 4 days, the 17th of June, 19th of June through the 24th. And that's all the mayors in the cities around the country. It's their staffs, it's the state and local officials that like to talk to and influence mayors, and it's the businesses that like to talk to and influence mayors. And so U.S. Conference of Mayors, the organization, is responsible for the 8 to 5 business part of it, and we're responsible for the entertainment and showing off our city and our region. And I'm just telling you, we're going to have a bang-up time doing it. The business community in Dallas has gone over the top in supporting it, so we're going to be able to show off and make people have fun and understand what a thriving, successful region that we live in. So it's going to be a lot of fun to do that. A lot of guests. We're having another interesting conference before that. I'm a little kind of stroked out about that one. New Cities Conference is done by the same group that did Davos. And this is the third one they've done, and they're doing it the 3 days right before the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I'm going, ooh. They bring in, it's by invitation only, and if you look, kind of look at the roster of the people that come speak at Davos and the sessions they have there, and they're trying to create a similar thing around cities. So I have to applaud that. But they're just beginning. So kind of keep an eye on that too. There'll be interesting speakers in town and interesting people. It's challenging because it's new, but I think it's really good for Dallas and for our region that people that are doing this kind of work, and it's international, mind you, it's not national, it's international, want to come in Dallas and think that Dallas and this region is an important part of the international scene. So I think that's the takeaway to that, even though it may be a little difficult this go round. I think it'll be good for our region to have been the third city that had these particular conferences. So watch for that one, it'll be good too. Don't spend a lot of time worrying about being a woman. I'm sorry. I think if you aren't expecting to be treated some particular way because you're a woman, or you're not, wearing on your shoulder, I'm a woman and something's going to happen to me, I think that makes a big difference. I'm not saying that things don't happen, but if you approach it that way, I think you minimize that. So.
That you saw when you went to the White House, and how many presidents have you met? And which one was your favorite?
I can't answer my favorite. They were all my favorites. The most memorable thing about the White House to me was it was so tiny. I had this idea that it was huge. Not so big. I want to tell you one thing that I was thinking. Somebody had asked me about what's the most memorable thing you had during your city manager career, and I want to tell you this, and I bet some other city managers that have had these kind of experiences would say the same. The first 6 months I was city manager, Rita and Katrina happened, and literally got a call one afternoon, on the phone. Thousands of people with nothing but their clothes are going to show up in buses at your city in the middle of the night. I literally remember sitting, looking at a spot on the wall going, I can't do this. And, I think back now, while I wouldn't wish that on the people in New Orleans or our staffs or anything, it was a good experience for me and for our organization, because we stepped up and got it done. And, it was 6 weeks of 24/7, but after that, we knew what we were capable of. And everybody in the region touched it and worked on it, and that was wonderful. But just for me personally, that affirmation that the toughest stuff that comes along, you and your organization can handle, is a big help going forward. Best to have the tough stuff first. Yeah. Yes?
I don't think I need the microphone. I'm Molly Thorner. I'm the Director of Emergency Preparedness at the Council of Governments. And I actually was in the meeting where Mary met FEMA for the first time. We were actually supporting her. And I can't tell you how impressed I was as an alum and as a new person in the field, because she really helped them make me accountable. They were trying to really waffle on some stuff, and the leadership that she displayed was really amazing. So that has made a big impact in my career, and I want to really think of that and kind of share that. That's not an easy choice, that's not an easy decision, and it's not an easy problem to have. I'm able to do that, and you guys really pulled it together and did a great job.
Thank you. Would- I would tell you, regardless of elected officials outside of your own, the local elected officials, regardless of their politics, I think when you go to them about a local problem, and during that time, Pete Sessions came to me and said, "What can I do?" And so I thought, well, I'm going to tell the man what I want. So I said, I need an auditor, because I'm fixing to spend a lot of money, and I know the feds are going to pay us back, but you need to, I want somebody that can tell me how to keep the records to get that money back. And he goes, "I'll get you somebody tomorrow." And I'm like, mm-hmm. There was somebody the next day, 2 auditors with FEMA, that every cent we spent, they told us how to keep record of it. And we got back our $7 million quicker than almost anybody did. But he's my hero in a whole lot of ways. But I just say that, it doesn't matter about the politics. When you're national level, state level, when you're asking for local help, they step up. They really do. Any other questions? Yeah.
You mentioned about making the UAT program more national, and I do. I'm Kansas now, but we'll talk about that other program. I'm North Texas now. But I do think that's important to do something with the passion behind it. How do we connect alums and get them outside of our region? Quite honestly, that's one of the things KU does so well. When they have these events, they have one every year, right? Go to it. And they have alums from all over the country come back to it. I think that's something that should leave the university or leave the region very important. Back there. I'd be interested in, you spoke about that.
Well, I think there's an amazing opportunity going on right now in our region when you look at what the universities are doing. And I think I wasn't as clear or strong about this when I was in my talking points, but I think if we don't step up, we're going to be left behind. I think we have to have a presence in the region, and we need to all work on that. Now, as far as getting somebody to come to an event like this, that's your and my responsibility. I need to call my buddy that's in California and say, it's important that you're here. It's important that you provide the example, that you participate. Y'all need to call AC and tell him it's important for him to be here, okay? For me, and I don't know if it works for most of you this way too, you can guilt me into just about anything. Do not back me into a corner, because then, I'm going to come out fighting, but you can appeal to my better self, and each and every one of us have those contacts to do that. And that's why I'm talking about students, alums, faculty, administrators, the partners that we work with. All of us need to say, this university brings value to this region, and we need to build on that value. And we have the opportunity to do that. It sounds to me like the new president is interested, but he's going to have a lot of people pulling on his coattail. But there are a lot of us sitting in this room right now that can have a conversation, or we know people that can have a conversation and say how important that is. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.